Hi guys, welcome to Travis's Blu-Ray shelf. If you just stumble upon me and you don't know what this is, don't worry, I'm not supposed to be here either. Joining me today is my wife Cassie. She's agreed to go through this adventure of the most exciting secret agent with the most boring name with me. We're going to start at the beginning with Dr. No. The very first Bond film came out in 1962 and starred Sean Connery as James Bond, and now is officially the oldest movie my wife has ever watched. You had only ever seen Daniel Craig as James Bond. You've seen a little bit of Pierce Brosnan too, but you only really paid attention to Daniel Craig. So this is your first time seeing the original Bond, the one most people consider the best Bond, Sean Connery. What did you think of Dr. No? Why did you think of it?
I didn't actually like it that much. As a opening to the series, I kind of felt the Daniel Craig Casino Royale was a better opening because it kind of went into actually how he became the 007 and everything like that. Whereas with Dr. No, it just kind of assumed you knew everything.
I think that was one of the problems when it came out. Back when it came out in 1962, most people had an idea who James Bond kind of was. The Ian Fleming novels were fairly popular, and everyone kind of knew who James Bond was. I think it's not a bad opening to the series. It does assume you know about James Bond. If you're watching it then, you're supposed to kind of know who James Bond was from the novels, like I said. Or if you're watching it now, you've lived with Bond over the last 50 years, going on 51 years now. So it's not a horrible opening. What I really enjoyed about Dr. No is that it really takes a focus on Bond's investigation rather than he just being the Superman that he was during the Roger Moore or the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies. I mean, did you find that boring, or do you prefer that kind of Superman mentality for Bond?
I actually prefer him not to be the Superman. Like, as we'll discuss in the later movies, some of the things that he does in the later ones I really enjoy, whereas he doesn't kind of focus on, I can overpower this bad guy by just one little flip and woo, there he's gone. Actually having to work for it and kind of put some effort into it was actually very refreshing.
I will say I do have a few problems with Dr. No. I don't want to sound like, oh, I absolutely love Dr. No, because I don't. We'll get in my score here in a few minutes. It seemed to me that it was, for the most part, actually a little poorly acted. Sean Connery seemed into the role in this one, but a lot of his supporting cast, especially Ursula Andress, who plays the Bond girl for this movie, Honey Ryder, she just seemed out of place. The shot of her coming out of the water in Crab Key is iconic. And it was so iconic that it would actually be duplicated by Halle Berry in Die Another Day. We'll get to that once we get there. But it just seemed very awkward. I don't know how you felt about it. She just seemed... Connery outshone her in every scene they were in together.
With her, I liked the fact of how they waited so long to include her. In the later Bonds, and one of the reasons why I shied away from it was the fact that the Bond girls always seem to be the center focus. Okay, the series is supposed to be about James Bond. He's supposed to be this spy, but yet let's throw some TNA out there, and that seemed to what it always was about. But with her, she doesn't come in until later, and really she seemed more as kind of a decoration as opposed to being, the center focus that they later become, and they're so ingrained in the story. With this one, it just kind of seemed, he kind of stumbled upon her, and she was there for a little bit, and then that was kind of it. But she did kind of seem like vague, like the actress wasn't there. Like, the character was there, but the actress wasn't in character. It was like, do you get what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying, and I feel similar to it. Moving away from Honey Ryder, one of the things that I also absolutely hated was it just seemed like it held your hand a little bit in some places. For example, once you get into Dr. No's actual laboratory, and it's just like, if you've ever seen the Batman series from the 1960s, you remember how there was a sign hanging over everything, the Bat phone, the Bat computer. It had to tell you exactly what everything was. And his laboratory was the same way. I know it seems like a minor complaint, but really is kind of annoying. Would this super villain's secret highway be labeled everything? This is the trajectory computer. This is the so-and-so reactor with little signs saying, it just didn't make sense. It really took me out of the movie. And like I said, it could be considered a minor complaint, but it's just one of those little things annoying me. And once you stack it up with some of the other stuff, for example, one of the things I know you have a problem with is a lack of logic. There's a scene where Bond is going to meet a woman who he's hoping to get information from, and she sets him up to be killed in a car chase. And then after a car chase, he continues on. You told me in particular you hated that lack of logic.
Yeah, because he calls her, he talks to her, and she gives him directions to her house. No one knows where he's going. He doesn't tell anyone. No one listened in. He and her are the only ones that know what's going on. And it's not like he was followed and, accosted by this car. This car was lying in wait for him. So that means she had to know. So after he dispatches them, instead of bringing him back up or anything like that, he just kind of goes on up the mountain to her house. And while it does turn out good, there was no way he knew that. Logically, there was no way he did not, she had already obviously laid a trap once. What's to say when he got up there wasn't 50 guys standing at the top of the mountain, all with a bunch of machine guns. He had no way of knowing, and it just seemed very illogical that he didn't do anything to help it.
Well, what would you say to someone that would say, well, this is a movie, you're supposed to have that suspension of disbelief somewhat, and just take it for a movie's sake, How would you respond to that kind of criticism?
Normally that would be okay, but like if they had been chasing him, like if they had maybe come in later down the line and they were following him, you could have suspended disbelief. Oh, they were following him. They had someone telling him, that would be a little bit more understandable. But the way that they did it, there is no way that you can really suspend the disbelief for that, unless you're just really one of those people that's like a real die-hard fan and is willing to overlook a lot of flaws.
Okay, we've talked a lot about what you didn't like. Are there any things you did like?
Well, other than the fact about, the fact that the Bond girl was not the center, I think the one thing that I really, really did enjoy was the scene in the water where they're running from the guys, and Bond grabs the reeds and cuts them, and they kind of slip underwater and use the reeds to breathe. That was very good, especially for, you don't see that a lot anymore. Just using the simple things in your surrounding to get away from the bad guys.
I personally liked Sean Connery. I did like him as James Bond. It's obvious to see why people were taken with him, especially in the beginning. The interactions with M and Moneypenny, played by Bernard Lee and Lois Maxwell, in each case, that set the scene for Bond movies to follow, and their interactions together are always great. It was always great to see those. And apparently, I like to say the word "great" a lot. But like I said, there's a lot of flaws with it. It's an okay movie, and I think if I had to give it a score, I would say a 3.5. It's an average movie. It's a good spy flick. It focuses on the investigation more than the action, but there's a lot of stiff acting, and you could tell that a lot of people thought, this might be a one and done. They set up something at the end for the organization known as Spectre. We'll get more of that as we talk about From Russia with Love. But it just felt like a lot of them felt like this was going to be a one and done, I feel like, and they didn't put enough heart into it.
You want my score now?
Yeah, I kind of want your score.
Actually, my score is the same. It's a 3.5 out of 5. It was, a good average movie. There were a few things I disliked about it, so obviously I didn't rate it higher. But there were some things that I liked about it, especially. I probably would have given it a little higher if it would have been a better opening to the series. And I kind of think that's also what kind of made me drop it down so low, is the fact that it wasn't that good of an opening. I think the thing that made me go at that 3.5 was the the fact that he didn't overpower the bad guys a lot, and the Bond girl wasn't the main focus.
Okay. Well, that's our thoughts on Dr. No. If you want to know what we thought, anything else in particular about this movie, make sure to comment below. Make sure to, if you like this, to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check us out on our blog, southeastbymidwest.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The link should be provided in the description below. And if you're watching this when it originally aired, be sure to enter the contest for the ultraviolet code for Skyfall. Next time we'll be pulling From Russia with Love off the shelf, the second Bond movie, also starring Sean Connery, and what I call the hipster's favorite Bond movie. I'll explain more why I say that later. But until then, as James Bond says, remember, if you get a strange invitation from a strange man, be sure to say yes. Later, guys.